I think what you see is elite playmaking ability. That's in him. You've seen it. We've seen it. You saw it in college. You saw it on tape last year. Sure, there's a ways to go, but what rookie isn't? I mean, what first-year player doesn't have a long way to go? So I'm excited to get started with him and all of our quarterbacks and all of our players.
What just happened with Todd Monken and the Cleveland Browns isn't just a small media moment. It's the kind of situation that can quietly explode into something much bigger. When a head coach starts pushing back against reporters, limiting access, and controlling what gets out, that's not random. That's a signal. And usually, it means there's way more going on behind the scenes than what we're being told. So let's break this down from the top, because the situation itself is already tense. The Browns are dealing with one of the most complicated quarterback rooms in the entire NFL right now. You've got Shedeur Sanders, the young name with hype, expectations, and a spotlight that's been following him since college. Then you've got Deshaun Watson, a veteran who still has the contract, the experience, and technically the inside track, but also comes with injuries, inconsistency, and a lot of pressure.
So the initial system is going to be the same, but then you have to adapt to whoever your players are, especially the quarterback. I mean, that's the guy that makes it.
Quarterback. Everybody wants to know about quarterback.
Can you bring that Mark Andrews short yardage play?
Oh yeah, we can do that.
And right in the middle of all that, Todd Monken, trying to establish control over a locker room that hasn't exactly been stable lately. Here's the part nobody's talking about. Monken isn't just frustrated with reporters for no reason. He's reacting to something. The questions around Shedeur Sanders have been getting louder, more direct, and honestly, more loaded. Reporters aren't just asking about performance anymore. They're asking about roles, about future plans, about whether Sanders is already QB1 in disguise. And that's where Monken starts pushing back.
You guys have heard me say it. I'm going to let it play out. I think it'd be completely unfair, just like it would be in any classroom setting, be it a history exam, and all the students walk in, and before they're actually given the exam, you give them a grade.
Because from his perspective, that kind of narrative can destroy a competition before it even properly begins. If one guy starts getting crowned by the media too early, it shifts everything inside the locker room. Players start picking sides, expectations start forming, pressure builds in ways that aren't healthy for development. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They start believing the hype before they've actually earned the role. And whether you like it or not, Shedeur Sanders is walking directly into that kind of situation. He's not just another rookie or young QB. He's a headline. He's a storyline. Every throw he makes is being watched differently. So when Monken limits access, when he shuts down certain questions, when he gets a little sharper with reporters, it's not just attitude, it's protection. He's trying to build something internally without outside noise tearing it apart.
We got Browns insiders basically wanting and rooting for Todd Monken to be fired because he's moving forward with Shedeur Sanders.
But here's where it gets dangerous, because the more you try to control the narrative, the more people start questioning what you're hiding. And that's exactly what's happening now, because reporters aren't backing off. If anything, they're pushing harder. The less access they get, the more aggressive the questions become. And now, instead of just talking about Shedeur's performance, the conversation has shifted to Monken himself, his tone, his approach, his willingness to engage with the media. That's not where you want the focus to be as a head coach trying to establish a new system. Here's the part nobody's talking about. This situation is also about power. Monken is a first-year head coach in this setup, and one of the first things any new coach wants to do is set boundaries. He's basically telling everyone, from players to media to even the front office, that this is his team now. And the quickest way to do that? Control the information. Because information is power in the NFL. What gets out, how it's framed, who gets attention, all of that shapes perception, and perception can influence everything, from locker room dynamics to fan expectations. So when Monken starts tightening access to Browns facilities, limiting what reporters can see, and getting visibly annoyed at certain lines of questioning, he's not just reacting emotionally, he's setting a tone. This is his system, his rules. But here's the risk. If that system doesn't produce results quickly, everything he's doing right now will get flipped against him. Because controlling the media only works when you're winning.
there are a lot of Browns reporters and people around, people all over, not even just Browns reporters. There's a lot of people that want to see Todd Monken fail, not because they have this disdain for Todd Monken, but because they have disdain for Shedeur Sanders, and Todd Monken is in support.
If the Browns start struggling, if the QB situation becomes messy, if Shedeur doesn't develop as expected, or Watson doesn't bounce back, then suddenly all that control looks like avoidance, it looks like deflection, it looks like a coach who didn't want people asking the hard questions. And that's when things spiral. This is where it gets dangerous, because the QB situation itself is already unstable. You've got two completely different timelines colliding. Watson represents the past investment. The money's already spent, the expectations were already set, but the results haven't matched. On the other side, Shedeur Sanders represents the future, potential, growth, upside, but also uncertainty. He hasn't proven it at the highest level yet. He hasn't carried a franchise, he hasn't faced the full weight of NFL defenses week after week. So Monken is stuck trying to balance both. And the media, they're not interested in balance. They want clarity, they want a headline, they want to know who's the guy. That's why the tension keeps building.
I think it goes both ways. I think when you watch a player, there's aha moments where you're like, I really like this player's skill set, how he fits us. And I think there's others that like maybe not so much. I think it works both ways.
Here's where it gets even more interesting. Inside that locker room, players are watching all of this. They see how the coach responds to pressure. They see how the media is being handled. They see which players are getting attention and which ones aren't. And whether people admit it or not, that affects trust. Because if players feel like things are being hidden or controlled too tightly, it can create distance. But at the same time, if they feel like the coach is protecting them from unnecessary noise, it can build loyalty. So Monken is walking a very thin line right now. This is where young players usually make a mistake. They underestimate how much the environment around them matters. It's not just about talent, it's about stability, it's about clarity, it's about knowing where you stand. And right now, that clarity doesn't fully exist in Cleveland. Because one day, it feels like an open competition. The next day, it feels like Shedeur is gaining momentum. Then it swings back to Watson's experience. It's constantly shifting. And that uncertainty is exactly what fuels media pressure. Here's the part nobody is talking about. If Shedeur Sanders actually wins this job, everything Monken is doing right now will suddenly make sense. It will look like he was protecting a young quarterback from premature hype. It will look like he was managing the situation perfectly. But if Shedeur struggles, or if Watson ends up starting anyway, then all of this tension with reporters becomes unnecessary drama. And that's the gamble. Because coaching in the NFL isn't just about play calling. It's about managing narratives, personalities, expectations, and pressure all at the same time. And Monken is right in the middle of all of that. This is where it gets dangerous, because the Browns as a franchise don't have the luxury of patience right now. They've been through instability. They've been through rebuilding phases. The fan base is tired of waiting. So every move gets amplified. Every decision gets analyzed. Every interaction with the media gets turned into a story. And that's exactly what's happening here. Because now it's not just about Shedeur Sanders or Deshaun Watson. It's about Todd Monken versus the media. It's about control versus transparency. It's about whether the Browns actually have a plan or are just trying to manage chaos. And that's a much bigger conversation. Here's the part nobody is talking about. This could define Monken's entire tenure if it goes the wrong way. First impressions matter. And right now, his first impression is tied to how he's handling pressure. If he proves that this approach leads to results, he'll gain respect quickly. Players will buy in. The media will adjust. The narrative will shift. But if it doesn't, then every press conference, every restricted access moment, every sharp response to reporters will come back up again. And it won't look strategic. It'll look defensive. So now we're at a point where everything feels like it's building towards something bigger. Training camp, preseason, early games, they're not just about performance anymore. They're about validation. Validation of Monken's approach. Validation of Shedeur's potential. Validation of whether this Browns team actually knows what it's doing.
This is where young players usually make a mistake. They think winning the job is the goal, but the real challenge is everything that comes after. Handling the spotlight, handling expectations, handling the criticism when things don't go perfectly. And Shedeur Sanders is about to experience all of that, whether Monken likes it or not. Because no matter how much you limit access, no matter how tightly you control the narrative, the NFL spotlight always finds its way through. So now the real question becomes this: is Todd Monken protecting his team from unnecessary noise, or is he trying to control a situation that's already slipping out of his hands? Because if this quarterback battle turns into a controversy, if the performances don't match the expectations, and if the tension with the media keeps growing, then this won't just be a small storyline anymore. It'll be the story of the Browns' entire season. And once that happens, there's no controlling it anymore.